My name is Scott Blaze, and today we're diving deep into a topic that separates those who drift from those who lead, the kind of discipline that actually lasts. Because the truth is, most people think self-discipline is about willpower, about pushing harder, grinding longer, but the reality is, sustainable self-discipline is rarely about brute force. It's about building systems, shaping your identity, and aligning your environment so that the disciplined choice becomes the easy choice. Let me tell you a story about a man named James Clear. Before his book Atomic Habits became a global bestseller, James was just a college baseball player recovering from a devastating injury. He didn't rebuild his life overnight. He didn't need massive willpower. What he needed, and what he built, were small daily systems. A habit of showing up at the gym. A ritual of writing one sentence every day. A routine of consistency that slowly, then suddenly, changed his entire life. That's the power of true discipline. It's invisible at first, but it compounds. So today, I want to walk you through 6 ways to build self-discipline that actually sticks. These are not hacks. They're principles, backed by science, shaped by real lives, and ready for you to apply. First, let's talk about identity-based discipline. One of the most powerful ideas I've ever come across is that lasting behavior change starts with identity, not outcomes. Most people say, "I want to get fit." But what happens when they miss a workout? Guilt, shame, giving up. Instead, imagine saying, "I'm the kind of person who never misses twice." Or better, "I'm an athlete." When you embody the identity, the behavior becomes natural. The author of The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg, said it best: once a behavior becomes tied to your sense of self, it becomes nearly automatic. So if you want discipline to last, don't just change what you do, change who you believe you are. Now let's get tactical. Discipline thrives in simplicity. One of the worst things you can do when building discipline is to overcomplicate your system. Let's look at Warren Buffett. Despite being one of the wealthiest men in the world, his personal life is almost shockingly minimal. He lives in the same house he bought decades ago, eats the same breakfast from McDonald's every morning, drives himself to work. Why? Because Buffett removes decision fatigue. He simplifies, and simplicity is a shortcut to consistency. The more you reduce friction, the easier it becomes to repeat the behavior, and repetition is the mother of mastery. That brings us to the third principle, environmental alignment. You cannot rely on motivation in a toxic environment. Think about it. If you're trying to eat healthy but your fridge is full of junk food, you're setting yourself up to fail. If your phone is filled with distractions, good luck focusing. We are not as strong as we think, but we are as strategic as we prepare. Design your environment to pull you toward discipline. Want to read more? Put a book on your pillow. Want to work out? Sleep in your gym clothes. The goal is to make the right choice frictionless, and the wrong choice harder. Before we move on, if you're finding value in this episode, I want to ask you for a small favor. If you're enjoying the insights, learning something new, or just appreciate this kind of honest, grounded coaching, take a moment to like, comment, share, or subscribe. It helps the podcast grow, and it helps this message reach someone who might need it. I truly appreciate your support. Now let's move on to a deeper discipline, the kind that doesn't just push against discomfort, but embraces it. Let's talk about discomfort. Most people run from it, but high performers learn to make peace with it. David Goggins is a name you probably know. Former Navy SEAL, ultra-endurance athlete, best-selling author. But what you may not know is that David was once an overweight exterminator who sprayed for cockroaches and binged on milkshakes. The man who now runs 100-mile races used to be unable to run a single mile. So what changed? He started leaning into discomfort. He taught himself that pain was not AS. And that leads us to principle number 4, delayed gratification. The Stanford marshmallow experiment is famous for a reason. Kids who resisted the temptation of one marshmallow in the moment for the promise of two later grew up to be more successful in almost every area of life. But it's not just about willpower. It's about knowing what your future self needs. And this is where I bring in a powerful concept, future visioning. Every morning, I spend 2 minutes visualizing the person I want to become. Here's another story. A young woman named Lisa started every Monday with a new plan to quit sugar. And by Friday, she was elbow deep in cookies again. Why? Because she never clarified the why that truly mattered. It wasn't about sugar. It was about self-worth. That's the 5th principle, emotional clarity. Without understanding the emotions that drive your discipline, or destroy it, you'll keep running in circles. When I coach clients, I often ask one question. What pain are you avoiding by staying the S? Discipline isn't just doing hard things. It's doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons. That's what lasts. And finally, the 6th principle, accountability with compassion. There's a myth in the productivity world that shame leads to progress. It doesn't. Self-judgment keeps you stuck. But accountability, paired with grace, that's transformative. Think about elite performers. They have coaches, not just to push them, but to remind them of their worth when they stumble. If you miss a day, don't punish yourself. Ask, what triggered the break? What do I need to do differently next time? Then recommit. The road. So let's recap the 6 principles. Anchor your discipline in identity. Simplify your system. Design your environment. Embrace discomfort. Master delayed gratification. And hold yourself accountable with compassion. Each of these isn't just a tip. It's a philosophy, a way of living that creates momentum, a lifestyle that builds confidence over time. When you stop relying on motivation and start building structures, your life stops swinging between highs and lows. It becomes steady, predictable, powerful. You become the kind of person who shows up, no matter what. And that identity? That's your secret weapon. I want to leave you with this. Self-discipline isn't about perfection. It's about pattern. It's about showing up just a little bit better today than you did yesterday. And when you string those days together, you become unstoppable. You don't need to hustle harder. You need to structure smarter. You don't need to feel motivated. You need to stay committed. And you don't need to change everything overnight. You need to start with one small win today. Because the version of you that has unstoppable self-discipline is not a fantasy. They're just a few consistent choices away. Make one of those choices right now. Decide who you want to become, and take one disciplined step in that direction. Thanks for being here. Keep showing up. Your future self is already proud of you. Let me show you how these principles apply in real life. Beyond theory. Take Serena Williams, one of the most disciplined athletes of our generation. Her morning routines were fixed. Her meals were deliberate. Her practice rituals bordered on sacred. But what most people miss is that her discipline didn't start when she became famous. It started in the small. At age 3, on public tennis courts with no fancy equipment. What she had was a framework. Her father instilled discipline not with fear. But the truth is, everyone has some form of discipline already. The question is, where is it being directed? You might be highly disciplined at checking social media, or disciplined in avoiding conflict. But is that serving the future you? Discipline is not rare, directed discipline is. This is why I often coach people to audit their habits before they try to build new ones. It's like cleaning your closet before buying new clothes. You need to know what's already taking up space. Ask yourself, what actions are currently automatic for me? Are those aligned with the person I want to become? If not, it's time to replace, not just resist. Now here's a powerful mindset shift. Don't just try to build discipline. Instead, build integrity with yourself. Discipline without integrity becomes punishment. But discipline with self-respect becomes empowerment. Every time you follow through on your word to yourself, you're building trust in your own identity. That internal trust compounds over time into unshakable confidence. One client I worked with had tried for years to wake up at 5 a.m. He tried alarms across the room, phone apps, accountability partners, nothing worked long-term. So we simplified. I asked him to forget 5 a.m. for now. I told him, just wake up and make your bed. That's it. Just one act of follow through. And once that became second nature, we added another. Drink a glass of water. Within 2 months, he was waking up before his alarm. Because he wasn't chasing motivation anymore. He was reinforcing identity. Small wins aren't small. They're votes. Votes for the type of person you're becoming. If you want lasting change, focus less on the outcome and more on the process. Less on the goal, more on the groove. The process builds the proof that you are who you say you are. Another story. Angela Duckworth, the author of Grit, studied high achievers across military academies, corporate boardrooms, and classrooms. Her conclusion? Grit, not talent, was the strongest predictor of success. And grit is built through long-term discipline. But where does grit come from? Not force. Not fear, purpose. When people believe in the meaning behind their actions, they persist longer. That's why your why must be personal, deep, emotional, not just logical. Let's zoom out for a moment. Imagine a bridge connecting where you are to who you want to become. Discipline is not the fuel, it's the architecture. Motivation is the spark that gets you moving. Discipline is what ensures the bridge holds your weight on rainy days. Without it, even your best intentions collapse. And if you've ever started a goal strong and then fizzled out, it's probably because your discipline wasn't supported by structure. So how do you build that structure? You systemize. Set clear triggers for your habits. Tie new behaviors to existing ones. Use the, after I do this, I will do that, model. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will write down 3 priorities for the day. Or, after I finish lunch, I will walk for 5 minutes. This reduces decision fatigue, it removes resistance, and over time, it makes discipline automatic. One final thing on structure, track your wins. Not just your goals. We often obsess over what's not working, what's missing, but when you document your discipline, every time you kept your promise, followed through, pushed through discomfort, you give your brain evidence that change is real. That growth is happening, that your discipline is working. Never underestimate the power of reviewing your wins weekly. Not just for motivation, but for momentum. Let me share something powerful with you, something I call discipline stacking. Just like you can stack habits, you can stack layers of discipline across different domains of life. Start with your physical body. When you master sleep, hydration, movement, you earn more mental energy. That mental clarity becomes the foundation for emotional discipline. You stop reacting, you start responding. Then that emotional control fuels your ability to lead, to decide, to act, without needing the world to be perfect. Think about someone like Jocko Willink, former Navy SEAL commander, author, leadership coach. Every single day, he posts a photo of his wristwatch at 4:30 a.m. Same message: discipline equals freedom. That phrase might sound paradoxical, but it's a truth few understand. When you discipline your time, you free your mind. When you discipline your habits, you free your creativity. When you discipline your money, you free your future. Freedom is not the absence of structure. It is the reward of discipline. But let's not pretend this path is easy. There will be days when you feel behind, when your old patterns resurface, when your inner critic says, "Why bother?" That's where most people quit. But that's also where champions rise. On those days, I want you to remember this: your discipline is not broken. It's just being tested. It's in those tests, those tired, unseen moments, that you train your resilience, that you prove your growth is real. And that brings us to something rarely talked about: emotional endurance. See, most people understand physical endurance, but few practice emotional endurance. The ability to stay calm under pressure, to keep showing up when the outcome is uncertain, to regulate your breath, your thoughts, your triggers, not just for performance, but for peace. Emotional endurance is a byproduct of two things: self-awareness and recovery. If you don't take time to reflect on what drains your energy, you'll keep running on empty. And if you don't schedule recovery like you schedule workouts, your nervous system will stay in survival mode. That's why recovery isn't laziness. It's leadership. Discipline without rest leads to burnout. But discipline paired with recovery leads to longevity. So take that walk without your phone. Journal before bed. Practice box breathing. These aren't soft habits. They're strategic acts of restoration. They preserve your ability to stay disciplined when others fold. Let's not forget that we live in a culture of comparison. Social media shows you highlight reels, not behind the scenes. You see the end result: six-pack abs, thriving businesses, flawless routines, but you don't see the countless micro-decisions made in private. So when you compare your messy middle to someone else's curated success, you feel like you're failing. But you're not. You're in the arena. You're doing the work. And that counts far more than perfection. Progress, not performance, is the true measure of discipline. Let me offer you this: instead of setting perfect standards, set minimum baselines. What's the smallest version of the habit you can commit to on your hardest days? 5 push-ups, 1 journal sentence, 1 deep breath. These are not compromises. They're anchors. They keep you tethered when the storm comes. And storms will come. But if your discipline is rooted in purpose, if your systems are simple, if your wins are tracked, if your compassion is present, you will not be shaken. You'll bend, but you won't break. Because discipline that lasts is not hard and rigid. It's flexible and resilient. It adapts. It grows with you. It becomes part of you. And that, my friend, is when discipline is no longer something you do. It's who you are. Let me remind you, before we close, that no one was born with more self-discipline than you. What separates the disciplined from the undisciplined isn't genetics. It's structure. It's self-awareness. It's daily choices compounded over time. It's the ability to say, I may not be perfect, but I will be consistent. That consistency is what rewires your brain, builds your habits, and creates a future you can be proud of. And that future? It starts right now, with one decision, one step, one disciplined act. Before I go, Let me share one last story. There was a man who spent years feeling like a failure. His name was Thomas. He started and stopped dozens of routines, morning plans, gym memberships, diet programs, you name it. Every time he failed, he added another brick to his wall of self-doubt. Until one day, his son asked him a simple question, "Dad, why don't you ever finish anything?" That broke him, not out of shame, but realization. He didn't lack discipline, he lacked self-belief. He didn't need more information, he needed transformation. So he started small. He picked one thing, writing in a journal for 5 minutes every day. That was it. No performance goals, no metrics, just presence. Within 6 months, he had written every day, gone back to the gym, and even rekindled his marriage. Why? Because he stopped trying to become someone else. He started trusting the version of himself. Self-discipline that lasts begins with self-respect. So here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, pick one small act of discipline. Keep it simple, keep it visible, keep it consistent. Track it, reflect on it, adjust as needed, but do not quit. Because every time you follow through, you are teaching your brain, I am the kind of person who keeps their word. You are building proof that your change is real. And slowly, sometimes imperceptibly, you are building the most powerful force in the world. Not motivation, not hustle, but trust. The kind of trust that no storm can shake, that no failure can undo. You're becoming the kind of person others rely on. And more importantly, the kind of person you can rely on. You're not just building habits. You're building a foundation. And when you build on truth, on clarity, on structure, on purpose, that foundation will carry you further than any motivational spike ever could. So take a deep breath, stand up tall, and take that first step. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. You have what it takes. Not because you're perfect, but because you're committed, because you care enough to keep going when it's hard. And that's what will set you apart in a world full of quick fixes and shortcuts. Discipline is not punishment, it's protection. It guards your peace, your progress, your potential. You deserve the life that discipline builds. And you are worthy of that life, not when you reach the mountaintop, but when you choose the climb. So keep climbing, keep becoming, and I'll be right here, rooting for you every step of the way. Let me leave you with a final thought. Self-discipline isn't about restriction, it's about liberation. The more aligned your actions are with your values, the less internal conflict you feel, the more you choose purpose over impulse, the stronger you become, not in a loud, flashy way, but in the quiet strength of someone who knows who they are and where they're going. And if there's one thing I've learned in all my years coaching, speaking, and building discipline in my own life, it's this: discipline isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in quiet consistency, in silent mornings, in uncomfortable choices, in ordinary moments made extraordinary by your willingness to keep showing up. So whatever goal is in front of you, whatever version of yourself you're trying to grow into, remember, the bridge is built one brick at a time. Lay one today, then tomorrow, another, and keep laying until your vision becomes your reality. This has been a journey into the heart of discipline. Thank you for walking it with me. And remember, you're just getting started.